Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's all right. So welcome to this shortwave radio show. Let's try to lower this and maybe put it like more like this here. So hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. This is the Wednesday edition of the shortwave radio show. And this looks just correct. So welcome aboard, everyone. So it's time for the Wednesday edition of the show. Been playing around with radio, lots of radios, many radios, so many radios to play with. Sometimes you forget you got some odd radios. So welcome, everyone. This is the Wednesday edition of the Shortwave Radio Show, our stream, and we are live twice a week. We are live on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So for most of North America, that is, Wednesday evening. But for Europe and a big chunk of the world, it's 0 UTC. That means it's Thursday. So hope that you enjoy. And we also have Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 20 hours UTC. And so we have two different time slots because we try to accommodate as much people around the world as possible by having two different times. And I know that this time doesn't really favor Europe unless you can't sleep. But it does favor a lot of the, Southeast Asian, Middle East area where it's early morning and to afternoon. So that's what we're trying to get as many people from around the world to have fun joining the stream. And of course, the Saturday edition is better for Europe. It's good for North America because people don't work in general, exceptions to the rule, of course. The Wednesday night edition is more of a favor for North America also because people, even in the West Coast, are getting into early evening. And we try to, do this and accommodate people by doing different times. And it's nice. We've had different, we have kind of a core audience that stays the same all the time, but we have different audiences also internationally due to the fact that there's two different time zones. And hope that you guys had a lot of fun with radio in the past few days since our last show, Saturday. And of course, it's nice to be here. Last Wednesday was not possible. Something prevented us from being live. It just didn't work. But this Wednesday it's working. So, hey, it's cool. So welcome aboard, everybody. This is a show where we talk about radio in general, and radio is a big part of the world. It's still one of the main ways that people are getting news and information. And when things go bad, what happens? Big storms, earthquake, unrest in the country. The internet is not the place where we have that information. What happens is that we often the internet is down, doesn't work, or in certain countries around the world, we're thinking of Myanmar right now, where it's things are kind of complex. Well, it's easy to block everything on the internet. Well, shortwave isn't blocked. Yes, it can be. They can try to jam it, But jamming is not as efficient as shutting off the internet. Jamming might one day prevent you from listening to the news from whatever your source you're choosing, but it doesn't work the same every day. Propagation changes. You guys know propagation changes. And I still remember back in the 80s, hearing from, I remember one particular report from HCJB where they were reading letters, and one of the listeners had asked if they got any mail from Russia. And HCJB, his response was, "We get mail from Russia from, regularly." And of course, as a teenager, I was, very aware of the Cold War, very aware that Russia and the rest of the world or a lot of the world in the Western countries is a different thing. And I want to thank Shortwave for that, because I think I was more aware of what was happening in the Cold War because of Shortwave than everybody around me. As a teenager, I don't know. I was a weird teenager, probably. I don't know. I try to put myself into, my teenage years. I was a guy that enjoyed news. I wanted to know what happens around the world. The news bulletins on TV were important. And today, I look back and I'm like, was that something important for my friends? Were my friends watching news on TV? Or were they just doing something else? I was a different teenager than a lot of teenagers, for sure. I had friends, but I was still kind of more of a loner. So it's like, I had my friends. That was enough. Was not the kind of guy that would take part in whatever's happening. Oh, let's make a group that's going to do this. Yeah, do that. I'm not there. I'm not. I'm not a group guy, which is very different from today. Today is obvious that I'm more of a group guy than I ever was. But I seem to. I don't know if it was just a perception to consume news a little more. And I seem to be more aware of all that happened. Not that I don't think people were not aware. I don't think that my friends or the people that I went to school with were not aware. But maybe I was more aware. I don't know. I think shortwave brought some side of technology of what's happening around the world. It was a bigger dimension. You have your news source from the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, or some private network in Canada. We had cables, so of course I had the viewpoints of the networks like NBC, ABC, and CBS, which were also something I would, that probably was part of maybe a little more knowledge, because a lot of my friends didn't speak English or understand it really well. When I was 14, 13, 15, I understood English very well. So I could, listen to a broadcast in English without any problem. Of course, the US media from cable for me were important sources of news also. So I had the American viewpoint through the big networks, and I had the viewpoints of Canada through the CBC. And add to that you have the viewpoints of the world through shortwave, because every country had a different, some had similar ways of thinking and explaining, but some had a very different point of view. And I'm not even talking about necessarily countries that were communist. There were countries that were on the Western side of all of this that were critical of, the United States, and were critical of a lot of the stuff that happened, I know that here, I think a lot of Canadians were on the side of, who are they? These two big countries that decide that the rest of the world might live or not because of their. I remember one comment, particularly on TV, where a woman said, um, who is the U.S. and Russia to be thinking of our future with their stupid ideas and their stupid wars? And that outside of the two big main countries of that time where everything was happening, the viewpoints of around the world was different of in a lot of ways. Shortwave was nice because it gave us the viewpoint of everybody. There are things where we are uniting and we united in an ideology and thinking, but there were, I still remember. I don't know if you guys in the U.S. ever heard about that, but it was a controversy here in Canada that the United States were testing the cruise missiles in the north of Canada. That was an agreement with the Canadian government in the 80s. But a majority of Canadians wanted to have nothing to do with those missiles. They wanted those tests to go back to the US and forget it. You're not testing here. And testing continues, testing continued. And there were demonstrations and all sorts of things. But I don't think it was the fact that, it wasn't the fact that it was US missiles. I think it was the fact that the representation that these missiles were possibly sending nuclear warheads around the world that didn't please a lot of people. But here there was a lot of demonstration and there was a lot of talk about, hey, the US, get your missiles back because we don't want to have that here on our Canadian territory. And it's interesting because I always thought, they went through. I don't know if maybe they went less because of those demonstrations. I have no idea. But it was, it was interesting times, and Shortwave was definitely there for that. So, you guys have an idea of what this type of show is. Shortwave radio, from the past, from now, from the future. We travel in time through shortwave. My name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, northeast part of North America, and we are live, of course, tonight, May 5th, May 6th, UTC time. And we, of course, talk about radio. And there's a chat room that you can join in and say hello to everybody. If you're new to the hobby, you know what? This is a great place to be. If even if you're an expert in the hobby, well, why not? We want to have your expertise and know what you're thinking and what you talk about, and help others. And of course, there's a Facebook group when all of this is over, which has the same name as the channel here, official SWL channel. And hope that you enjoy this live show and hope you enjoy the content on the channel, testing radios and comparing radios. And I got to say that, if you would have told me when I started in 1982, one day you're going to have that channel, you're going to test tons of radios and have plenty to play with. And I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah. So anyways, welcome everybody. It's another night. Of course, I've got my vodka and cranberry juice. Cheers. And hope that you enjoy tonight. Our little show. I'm thinking of, I won't say too much, but in the next few weeks, there's going to be a little contest. And I'm not sure exactly what I want to do because there's the ideas in my head. One of the problems of contests is that if you're new to the hobby, you're not going to be as, necessarily as good as others. But anyways, we're going to see. One of them is, because there's a few things I'm thinking of, but one of them I'm thinking of is in a few weeks' time, we're going to have a live show where I'm going to have a interval signal contest. It's going to be interval signals from, that you can hear today and from the past. And there's going to be a deadline, a very quick deadline, that if you don't give me your reports of what these interval signals were, you're not qualified, because I don't want you guys to cheat and go on the internet to listen to interval signals to see what they were. And in return, everybody that will send back a report with all the stations they have identified will be sending a certificate, an e-certificate that you'll get by email in return, with your name and the amount of interval signals you got right. So that's coming up in within the next few weeks. So if you guys want to play around with that, I think it's going to be fun. It's probably going to happen on a Saturday show to get a lot of Europeans here, and hope that you guys are going to enjoy. I'm also thinking of another one, which would be kind of a quiz style show, but I don't know exactly how we're going to arrange that. But anyways, I got a few ideas where there's going to be more interaction with everybody, so hope that you can enjoy that. So hope everyone is fine here. Things are going pretty well, and live shows and having fun with radio and all sorts of things. Jay Watterson 69, nice to have you on board. Bobby Burgess, WA5107 SWL, Morgan City, Louisiana, USA. Randall Clons from Northeast Illinois. Graham Tablin, nice to have you here. Graham from Milton, Ontario, VE3077 SWL. We have the Blind Picker. Nice to have you here, Rob. W0RAB in Connecticut. Mark Cope, WA5153 SWL in Dallas, Texas. Graham says 11 in Milton, Ontario, with a few showers. It's roughly the same here. Kind of this weird grayish weather right now. David, KJ4CMY, nice to have you on board from Central Georgia. TVDXer, bonjour et bienvenue. J'espère que ça va bien, mon ami, et que tu fais beaucoup d'écoute de la radio. C'est toujours un plaisir de t'avoir parmi nous. Nice to have you here, TVDXer, from just, we're not that far from Montreal, actually. Rob, nice to have you here from Phoenix, Arizona. Mag315, nice to have you here from North Carolina. Skip, N2EI, nice to have you on board from South Jersey. Michael Thompson, nice to have you here. N2NLQ from New Jersey, USA. Jerry DX, nice to have you on board, my friend. Always a pleasure to have you here. Jed Crafter, nice to have you here from rainy South Maine. RJDA Dakota, nice to have you on board from WA0113 SWL. William Helms from Florida, nice to have you on board, my friend. And pretty cool to have you on board. Yeah, I saw that picture of the antenna with the slinky. Kind of cool. That's what's the fun of radio. Just experiment and have fun with it. SoCal, nice to have you here in San Diego. Tom DXer, WPE2QED from the Hudson Valley, New York. Joe Brown, nice to have you on board from Southeast Michigan. Pretty cool. We have Larry Stevens, nice to have you on board from Ohio. Hey, hi, the Blind Picker. Nice to have you here, Rob. Estrella Garcia, nice to have you here, my friend. Laura Robertson, nice to have you on board from Georgia, KO4DFJ. Joe, nice to have you here from Newmarket, Virginia. Pretty cool. Yeah, Jerry, that's the way it is, Those trolls and idiots out there. Tons of them, too. Aerial imaging. Nice to have you on board, my friend. Kevin, nice to have you on board from the Jersey Shore, WS2H. 80 meters is hopping. Welcome aboard. Donald Hosmer, nice to have you here. W8SWL, Southern Michigan. And what else do we have? Log 2112, nice to have you here. Joe Rodman, nice to have you here from Chicago. Chas Tank, good evening. Nice to have you here from Louisville, Kentucky. Ethan Corsby, nice to have you here. Just subscribed today, and you helped me decide on my first shortwave portable radio. Cool. Happy. Hope you're going to have a lot of fun and a lot of listening time on that radio. Ethan is from Hudson, Florida. Pretty cool. Jerry X says, big storm heading east down south. Like 2112, shortwave is the only medium where anything can get anywhere. And that's pretty much it. Absolutely. Ethan says, well, be a regular. Love anything radios. I was a telecommunications specialist for the U.S. Coast Guard. Cool. Welcome aboard, my friend. Jerry X, did you think of a nickname for the Super Bowl? No. Sluvian, nice to have you here from Scotland. What else do we have? Rufus Newt, nice to have you here from the Laurentian Valley, Ontario. Keegan, nice to have you on board. XN80Xer from Arkansas. Michael Thompson says, radio, it was how I learned about the Cold War in the 70s and 80s. Yep, I'm sure. KC8 TBY, nice to have you on board from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Danny Shortwave Radio DX from Yonkers, New York. Nice to have you here. Richard Bittner, nice to have you here from Fort Worth, Texas. Pretty cool. Have everybody around the world, across the United States, Canada, and so on. Pretty cool. KC8TBY, I just purchased an interesting wire antenna off of eBay that clips directly to the antenna of my portable radios. Trying it out tonight. Let you know how it works. Cool. Kimberly, K6YYL, nice to have you on board. 10 meters has been hoping here and there today. It's been a lot of fun. Cool. Joe Brown says, Swami Gel, our shortwave radio guru. God. Christian Marcoux, salut. J'espère que ça va bien. The MLA30 right today have the normal coaxial size connector adapter, which is too big. Can you direct me to the adapter I need? Thank you. Christian, the antenna's connector is an SMA. Okay. So if you want to plug that to a portable, what you need is a SMA female to 3.5 millimeter connector for a male connector for the portable radio. I'll post the link again for those that have a MLA30 or are about to buy one and that are searching for the proper connector to their portable radios. What you need. What you need is this. What you need is love. What you need is love. There you go. This is exactly what is needed for a connection from an MLA30. Oh, that link is super long. Wow. Wait a minute here. Let me just get one that's a little smaller here. Um, hmm. Check this one. Copy. These links are way too long. What the hell is that? Let me just check one that has a link that is a decent one. Because the one that you want to have is, okay, the ones that are sponsored, I guess. Yep. Yep. Is that going to be better? Yep, this is going to be good. Here we go. So this is what you want. Anybody that gets an MLA 30 and wants to connect it to their portable shortwave radio. 90% of portable shortwave radios have a 3.5 millimeter connector. And so this is what you want to have. SMA female to 3.5 millimeters or 1/8 of an inch male connector. And here you simply choose the cable length. It goes from 6 inches to 20 feet. So that gives you an idea of how long you can get it. And it is exactly what you want. So this is going to be the exact thing that you need to connect. Joseph Richard, nice to have you here, Joseph. Brent, nice to have you on board from Brockville, Ontario, Canada. What else do we have? Michael Thompson says, we travel in time through radio. Good line. Yeah, pretty much. Aerial imaging nowadays, when you seek out media outside of the domestic mainstream narratives, they have a name for you. Yeah. You know, it's interesting because the politics, the religion, I'm trying to figure out sometimes if our nations and our way of being is more polarized than ever. I am not convinced it necessarily is. I think it's because it's more in your face. Because, come on, as a shortwave kid with a shortwave teenager with the Cold War, I mean, how extreme polarized can it be? You're a communist or you're a Western world dude, and there were some in the middle, but I mean, it's like are you a communist or not? Today we look at our politics and our way of doing things, and in recent years, lots of stuff happened that made us react a lot. And COVID didn't help. COVID is also something that is making a lot of, you're here or you're there, but you got to decide, where are you? I think what happens is that today, the internet particularly is giving a voice to people that didn't have a voice back then. In the 80s, you were polarized, either communist or Western country style, free, and still, nobody had really a voice except through radio, television, stuff like that. There were magazines, of course, and stuff like that, but it was not mainstream. I shove it in your face. Now it's everybody has an opinion on something, and we see those differences because people are now talking about it. They all have a voice with social media and the internet. I don't think it's worse. I just think it's the same it ever was. It's just now we have it shoved in your face with everybody because of communications. but I don't think it's worse than 20 or 50 or more years ago. I don't think it is. It's just that now you've got your friend that never talked about it in your face talking about it on his Facebook wall, and you're like, okay, maybe he or she isn't what I thought he or she was. It's a different thing. Back then, it was more of official voices. You had these radio stations that were explaining what communist life was all about. Apparently, a dreamland of people happy working for the state versus the United States and the Western countries. Dreamland, people are free; they do what they want. They're all happy, which was crap on both sides. It's untrue that people in the Western country were necessarily more happy than the ones, but they were maybe a little morbid. I mean, both countries had the crap, all the crap rhetoric of whatever life is in their own respective place. And, it seems that nobody was having a hard time. Everybody was happy. It's like, yeah, that's kind of crap, because both sides had, and still, today might not be the same, but honestly, Russia isn't far from its communist times when you look at Vladimir Putin and all of that. And there's smell of Cold War a little bit. Look at the tensions with China. Look at it's interesting because I look at that. I'm thinking about radio, and I'm thinking, well, it's a thought came to my mind the other day because China has a lot of shortwave transmitters. They jam. They do a lot of stuff. And, we think of tensions. We think of China and Taiwan. We think of, it's kind of a little rough war with, the U.S. and not just the U.S. I think a lot of countries are kind of a little in a moment where it's like, free trade, could be a little better between China and us and so on. What if China had understood that let's have tons of shortwave transmitters because we'll need them at some point? Where the US, where Western world has decided no need for shortwave anymore. Come on, the internet does it all, which is very short-sighted, honestly. I think the biggest lie that we may have in our faces: who needs shortwave when the internet does it all? Because the internet has so many flaws where it can be turned off or crippled that and it makes you think. It makes me think why some countries, even though they left shortwave, they kept their transmitters and antennas up. They could have sold that. I mean, it was that these take land. I mean, these are millions of dollars of land. They could have just like, yeah, if we remove the transmitters and antennas, we can sell that for a big price today. Yeah, but it's interesting. A lot of countries didn't do that. I know for a fact that a few countries, like the old transmitter sites for Radio Slovakia, Radio Prague, that was not dismantled. It's there. It's not used, but nobody dared take it down. And there are quite a few transmitter sites around the world from countries that were on shortwave before, where they decided we're not on, but let's just leave it there. Even in U.S., look at the Bethany station in California. Everything's there. The antennas, the transmitters, they didn't take that down. It's almost if somehow somebody somewhere said, let's keep that just in case. Okay. Chas Tank says vodka and cranberry juice has been become the official drink of this channel. Yeah, pretty much. Jerry DX $1 million prize. Yeah, $1 million to the to anyone that has the 100 interval signals, perfectly. Rick, nice to have you here, Rick from Milwaukee. Christian Marcoux, thanks. Tom and I have such an adapter. Only it's the normal size. The MLA 30 Plus comes with the miniature. Well, an SMA is not a miniature. An SMA is an SMA. If you have something that's bigger, it's not an SMA. The MLA 30 really has what is called SMA for the type of connector that is, which are small connectors. Something also I want to mention, because I've been seeing a few posts and a few messages from people on different groups that are damaging their radios with the connections to the antenna to the portables. Remember, portable receivers have a delicate connector that is not meant to have force or weight on it, and a lot of the connectors that go in are heavy and break the connection as time goes by. So make sure that you have very lightweight, very bendable wires with that connector to the radio to make sure that it doesn't strain the connection. Very important, because a lot of people are damaging their 3.5 millimeter antenna connector because of that. And got to be careful. RJ Dakota, no margaritas for Cinco de Mayo. Nope. Lock 3112. My uncle was an RTO. He left me tapes of comms from Germany. He received in the field. Wow. Jeff King, Jacksonville, Florida. Nice to have you here. Okay, in Vietnam. Okay. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. It's a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff when you think about it. Trying to find where I was. Okay, here we are. KC8 TBY testing out his Texan AN48X portable antenna here in his tiny one-bedroom apartment. It does null a lot of noise from my router, and it seems to work sometimes. Yeah, you're better off with an MLA 30. The Texan AN48X, there are parts of shortwave where it doesn't work well. And it's, you got to always tune. An MLA 30 is a way better choice, and it's going to null out that noise as much as the Texan AN48X. Mickey Delmage, nice to have you on board from Sherwood Park, Alberta. 18 Celsius today. Cool. What do we have? What else do we have? Kevin, not really shortwave, but the Starship 15 successfully launched and landed safely. SpaceX. Yeah. 50. I was hearing that the that satellite, that internet satellite constellation they're building, already 50,000 customers want to have internet through that. Christian, just thought of something. Tom the Xer, does the SMA mean the connector, including the size? There's no size to an SMA is an SMA. There's no size on an SMA. It's an SMA. If you get an SMA male and an SMA female, they plug in together. It is exactly that type of connector. If you have something that's bigger than that, it's not an SMA. You have something else. It's another type of connector. SMA has one standard, and that's it. It's like when you say, "Well, I need a RG59 to plug into I need a I need something that plugs into the SO239 on my radio. Yeah, that that's a PL259, and that's it. The connector's name tells you what plugs into what, and there's no size to the connector. There are a few things like the audio cable. We have size because the 3.5 millimeter, because there's like 1/8 of an inch, but there's the bigger connector, like for the headphones I am using here, which is 1/4 of an inch. These have sizes, but David Spears, nice to have you here from the UK. Randy, nice to have you here from Riverside, California. Mike WDX50, nice to have you on board from Northwest Arkansas. We have in the chat, the link is. Robert Shine, nice to have you here. N3 VXT. Sergio Cordero, nice to have you on board. Buenas tardes, mi amigo. I met a person from Cuba, and he told me that his country, the internet is monitored, and that only through shortwave he could access the information without being watched. Absolutely. When I was a tech guy, I told the story of this very, very weird woman that I would fix her computer, and she was a Cuban, and she lived here in Montreal. I always thought she was very, very weird. And I told you guys that I was thinking, well, okay, that Cuban number lady, she's one of those listening. But we talked radio because there were, as a tech guy, when you go and fix computers, sometimes it's very long. Sometimes it's like you're hours before you leave, and we would talk. And I remember I was telling her about shortwave radio and listening to Radio Van in Cuba and amateur radio operators. And I still remember her telling me, people that are amateur radio operators in Cuba it's not anyone. It's very specific people that are given that privilege. It's not the average Joe becomes a ham radio operator and that's it. And it was like, kind of interesting here. The export. Angel, have you tried the stock antenna? It came with the ICOM R30 on the Malahite SDR. Works very well. I was surprised how well the match worked. No, I haven't, but I will. Kind of interesting. I will, for sure. So, that's interesting. I saw your post. I don't remember where you sent the post. Was it on the Facebook group? But I will try it. I'll let you know the export. For sure. Log 2112. 60 years old and still not a licensed amateur. Not everybody will become an amateur radio operator. I mean, I want to eventually have it. The stars needs to be aligned in a certain way, and the thing about all of the of all of that is some will become ham, some won't, and that's pretty much it, and it's okay. I mean, not everybody needs to become a ham radar operator. Dave, nice to have you on board. Well, you got to be careful. Everybody around the world wants to have their own voice and their own way of thinking. China is one, and that's the way it is. They're allowed to be there and say what they want and what they think. What else do we have? Joe Tyson. Nice to have you here from Apex, North Carolina, KM4WRQ. What else do we have? What else do we have? Or JDA Dakota. Internet is a good thing, but it can be abused. Shortwave crosses borders, and each opinion is open and different. Yep. Brad and Amarillo, nice to have you here. Ready to play in the Armed Forces Day crossband test. Yeah, that's going to be fun. That's coming up this weekend. The Armed Forces crossband test with Mars military and amateur radio. Pretty cool. Scott KC2C80, nice to have you here. Ethan says, totally getting rid of shortwave will be a big mistake. It will be like getting rid of Lauren. The GPS is great, but we need backups. Yep, absolutely. Dave is listening to Radio Romania on his Texan PL310. Just got my PL330, but I'm waiting for my Chinese battery. Cool. Bruce, nice to have you here. Rich, nice to have you on board from North Carolina. Joe DeTurco, nice to have you here from Rochester, New York. Jay, in your personal opinion, what would be the benefits of a revival in present day use of shortwave? One of the things that is definitely happening, and you know, it's what's complicated in a revival, first of all, of shortwave would be the fact that a lot of people now, you know, in North America, we are a weird gang that still do it, but a lot of people don't listen anymore to shortwave. It's something that was in the past, because a lot of our technology is taken over, and you know, we're somewhere else. You know, we talk about internet. I always hear the internet is breaking shortwave, and it's not. The internet has nothing to do with it. I think noise has much more of an issue with making our hobby something people don't want to listen to anymore than the internet is. Noise is way more of a nuisance for a hobby. One thing for sure, for stations to stop, because I mean, a lot of stations left, a lot of stations are still alive. A lot of people are in the impression that, for example, the BBC is not on shortwave. I hear that very often, and it's like, no, they are. They're just not broadcasting to North America. I think a lot of stations understood one thing, that North America is not a target audience anymore. Now, a revival of shortwave is not, for me, something that is necessarily what will happen or could happen. What I mostly think is that whoever has shortwave transmitting capabilities should keep that in working order, because when things happen, it's a great way to get in contact. Last time we had a CIDX meeting, we were talking about how a lot of companies are still making, you know, we're talking about Texan, for example. One of the interesting aspects of Texan is how many radios do they sell exactly? That was a question, a legitimate question. And they're making new radios and new designs. To do that, it's because you know you're going to sell some of these radios enough to make money. Because, I mean, Texan is a, you know, let's make money off of selling radios. So we went to the thinking of, they must be selling quite a lot of them, or at least enough of them to make a decent profit, because If no one was there listening and buying radios, they wouldn't be doing all of this. Especially now, we're getting a few higher end receivers. It's like, what? It's an interesting thing when you think about it. One of the things we did talk about is, when the internet fails for X reason, what would be a good thing or a great way of being, back on shortwave? Why would we want to go back on shortwave? And in times of really, bad, something bad happening, shortwave is definitely one of the only ways that is easy to communicate to a lot of people at the same time. And we were talking about different things. I talked about the fact that, you never know. We had 2 world wars. Anything weird can make another world war happen at any point. Well, that's one example. But we were talking about also the, there's a report that came out that says that solar storms are probably happen more often than we think. So imagine a big solar storm that actually destroys a part of our power grids. How do you talk to people? No power, you don't have the internet. And how do you talk to people? You talk with radio, and you talk with shortwave radio. I think the revival of shortwave will not happen in a way that stations come back because everybody wants to talk to the world. It's obvious that stations and countries don't understand that the voice that they have and they had on shortwave is gone. I say it often. I don't know what happens in the Nordic countries of Europe anymore. I don't have Radio Sweden and Radio Norway to tell me, or Radio Finland. But when things go bad, how do you communicate with people? And I think the revival of shortwave would be in a catastrophe. Unfortunately, and shortwave is not the only example. There's so much different aspects of our lives where older technologies are being pushed aside, and you understand that, yeah, but what if? I don't know, but if something bad happens, I think that a lot of shortwave transmitters are going to be switched on again, but it's going to be different. It's unfortunately, it's not going to be like, the 70s or 80s or whatever. Alan Helderman's show. Nice to have you here. Bill Mayer. Nice to have you here from Alberta, Canada. Alan is from Charlotte. Scott, KC2CAD from North Boston, New York. Dave, what is your opinion on copper loops for the MLA30? Won't change anything. The loop won't change anything, whether it's copper or whatever. Most of what I've seen from people that modified the MLA30 is no improvement. The way it is the way it is, and there's really nothing, doesn't change much. But that said, try it and show me better. Tell me, well, I put a copper loop, it's 10 times better. And I want that, because I don't want to, when I say, no, what I read is that it doesn't change anything. I don't want to remove that side that you might have of, I want to experiment with that thing. Please do. And please, I know so many times that people are going to, that doesn't do anything. And people come back and say, look, it's way better like this. And that's why we still got to experiment and have fun. Simply have fun. What else do we have? Michael Thompson. I think people are confusing SMA and F, like cable TV connectors, which look very similar in photos. And some radio use F connectors. Yeah, it's possible. So, Golf. My connector is bigger than yours. Christian Marcoux. Thank you, Jill and Tom. I think I understand now. My adapter is the size fit for the beige TV cable connectors. No, that's an F connector. That's not the same thing. MLA is a SMA. It's really the name. It's really the name. You got to go by the name. There's a lot of that, that is similar. I understand what you're saying now, because the cable connector, yes, would look like an oversized SMA connector. Absolutely. Yeah, I get it now. TVDXer, they were smart to leave their shortwave infrastructure intact. Yes, I think so. Jetcrafter for my MLA30 did not use the supplied SMA cable. I purchased a male SMA to male 20.5 monoplug, being from mostly scanner background. The less adapters, connectors, the better. Yeah, but remember one thing, Jetcrafter, on high frequencies. So from the scanner world, a UHF high frequency has a lot more loss in having connectors to adapt than shortwave. Shortwave has minimal loss even with a connector. And but you're right. I mean, for higher frequencies, definitely the less you have connectors, I'll adapt this to that, and this is going to work. Yeah, and UHF, that's not a good idea. But on shortwave in general, it's not too bad. The Argos 12, nice to have you here. From New York, watching from my tablet, which is connected to the C-Crane FM transmitter, to which is transmitting to my St. Jean HDR16, so I have stereo sound right now. Wow, that's cool. I think this is a stereo microphone. If I move from one side to the other, it's like it moves. Nice to have you here, Sergeant Rock. And I mean, that is the ultimate geek of radio and in electronics. Log 2112 has an ID voice on 8792, male and female udder. And she sounds mad. That's her husband, fisherman, that didn't come home because he was drunk. Sergeant Rock, nice to have you on board. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Nice to have you here. Big Japanese-American holiday in Hawaii. Wow, cool. Jerry Carnes, nice to have you here. KD9QCZ from Indiana. Wanted to be an amateur since I first heard them on my first shortwave at 11 years old. I finally got my license last August at 55. Never too late. It's never too late. Congratulations, my friend. Never too late. Bruce Bernard says, I love my 990X. I'm just in bad part of the country living near Radio Marti and Cuba. I pick up lots of noise. Yeah, but what type of noise? Is it noise you're getting or is it overload? If it's just noise, you need something like an MLA30 or something, or go out in the countryside. Jerry Carnes enjoyed my unit and CB videos. It's that time of year. Yeah, look, it's on right now. I'm actually having it right now. I got my Tram 1411 discount up. That's what's connected right there. So I can actually turn this on, check out if I'm 38 lower sideband right now. And I can go and move to channel 6. Is there anything on channel 6 for skip? So it's on right now. I put the red display right now. You know, one of the things that somebody agreed with me with that, the unit in Bearcat 980 SSB, a lot of people talk about the fading display. And I actually was thinking that the fading display might be a problem with heat. And I was wondering about that because, I mean, I've had mine for more than, for 6 months, roughly 6 months now, maybe a little less. And I mean, this thing was, when I got it, it was on the sloper in my backyard. This thing worked from like 9 in the morning to midnight every single day. And I would make a few contacts when I could, and it would be on just listening on different channels and waiting for skip. And I mean, it didn't dim. This seems to be normal. But you know, when you put this, because this is a mobile rig, you put this in a car. I mean, everybody's been in a car in the summertime. A car in the summertime in the sunshine is like an oven. And I've been wondering if the extra heat being installed in a vehicle where it's really hot is not why the display is fading. It might be suffering from overheat because of that. And since I'm using it indoors, I'm using it inside where temperature isn't never really hot. It stays good because it doesn't have that overheat problem. And somebody when I mentioned that, somebody came back to me and said, you know what? That's not actually a bad way of thinking. Maybe it's that's making that display getting dim. But anyways, I love my 980 SSB, and I found a way to remove the annoying beep. I actually didn't know, but there was the when you actually click and hold the ANL noise blanker button. Look at this. I'll hold it again. When I hold it, it says, whoops, it says BP off, beep off. And now, no more beeps. Look at that. So I found that that was the way to remove the beeps. I mean, the beeps of that thing is so annoying. It's like I was going crazy. It's like I don't want to touch the buttons. I don't want to have the beep. Now it's the beeps are gone. But I'm happy and having a lot of fun testing out the tram discount with it. Somebody told me that when skip happens, if I'm tuned well with my discount and this CB, even with stock single sideband, which is peak 12 watts on SSB, that when conditions are good, I could actually maybe make contacts on skip. So we're going to try it for the fun, that's for sure. Log 2112, vomit on 6604. It's not New York. What you're getting on 6604 is Gander. Gander radio in Newfoundland, Canada, log 2112. New York does not have its weather station anymore on shortwave. Danny, Shortwave Radio DX. Texan must still be a profitable company. Texan was founded in 1994, currently has over 500 employees, and produces 5 million units yearly. That is interesting. Where do you get that information? You check it on Wikipedia or something? 5 million units yearly. You know, one of the things we were talking about, I mean, even if they would just want to sell to the Chinese market, it's a 1.3 billion people market. Sell a shortwave radio to 0.5% of these people. 0.5%. It's millions of radios. And it's a very small fraction of the population that buys one. So, maybe that's what's keeping it alive also. DJ Farlow, nice to have you on board, was tuning on a vintage Panasonic with Marine Band and was trying to figure out why I was getting music around 1.6 megahertz. And then I realized it was from medium wave. Yeah. Yep. When you go down, because a lot of these radios, they go all the way down. When you tune shortwave, they all go all the way down to 1.6. The X100 did that. So you're getting at the top part of the AM band, actually the expanded AM band there. So yeah, you're getting, when I got a DX100, the expanded AM band didn't exist yet. But and also you got to realize, because a lot of radios tag that area as shortwave, like shortwave 1, for example, or whatever. But in reality, when you go below 3 megahertz, you switch from shortwave to medium wave. Medium wave, so the AM radio band that we have is in what we call medium wave. But medium wave is larger. It starts at 300 kilohertz and goes all the way up to 3 megahertz. So, for example, if you are listening to a non-directional beacon on 350 kilohertz, it's not even long wave yet. It's, even though the radio tags it as long wave, it's medium wave. Long wave is 300 kilohertz below 300 kilohertz. And same for the bottom part of what a lot of radios consider shortwave. If you go to 2 megahertz, you're in the medium wave band. You're not in the shortwave band, technically. So, Chastang, remember Hurricane Katrina? What a mess. The news never said a word how agencies were communicating. It was all by radio. Radio comms were very alive down there for a long time. And, I bet you that there was a lot of amateur radio in there. It's like here when we had our high storm in 1998. People don't understand that amateur radio play big roles when things go real bad. Here, when the storm, the ice storm hit in 98, regular communications from the police, from emergency services, all was down. They were all down. Only because of amateur radio was communications going through. Imagine losing amateur radio operators, all of them, for some reason. I can tell you, in times of when things go bad and the regular communication services don't work anymore, we're going to be in deep trouble. Amateur radio is an immense service in times of emergencies. CB radio lover, when a solar storm happens or there's a disaster, you pull out your 50 kilowatt mole dropper mole linear and have a shout out on the Super Bowl Channel 6. Rich, MLA30 is not high Q, it is low Q. So in my humble opinion, a thicker element is not needed. Thicker elements are typical of IQ narrow bandwidth tuned loops. That's it. Keep us posted. Yep. Joseph, thank you for your time. Have a good evening. Take care, my friend. Jason Francis, nice to have you here from Ottawa. Michael Thompson, my MLA30 Plus U-Loop hybrid. Whoops, I lost it. Hybrid, I think it benefits from the doubled loop length, and that's about it. So, but it's fun to play with radio and antennas. I mean, I don't play a lot with antennas, except now I've been playing with my tram discount. I've been going nuts because the tram discount is on the front balcony. And when I put my CB radio in SWR mode, So I've got 1.1 SWR at channel 1, but I got almost 2 at channel 40. I went crazy with the 2 elements because there's 2 elements on the Tramp 1411 that you can adjust. And they are there to adjust for standing wave to have the best performance out of UCB. I spent an hour and a half going nuts and moving it just a little bit on one side and the other side and testing out and coming back in and checking out the SWR and it's like, okay, now it's worse there. Now it's better there. Now, oh, this is horrible. So I, after about an hour and a half, I ended up having an SWR reading of about 1.1 on channel 1, 1.45 on channel 40. I thought, you know what? That's fine. I'm tired of playing with these little elements and trying to figure out how to make it better. Oh, man. Chris66, nice to have you here from Kentucky. Nice to have you on board. Scott, KC2C80, been checking out 10 meters, 11 meters, and they have been dead even during contesting. They've been open this week because I've been hearing Channel 6 Super Bowl yesterday for a couple of hours. And what was it? So yesterday I heard some, and the day before I think I heard some also. There was some activity. Check very regularly, Scott, because Sportic E-Skip particularly. And we're getting in that time. So, we're early May. June is pretty much the biggest Sportic E-Skip moment of the year. As we'll get close to the solstice. Check out all the time, at night, anytime. Because when Sportic E-Skip hits, it's all open and it's crazy. Quebec 76, nice to have you here from West Michigan. Jerry Karn says, I don't like the beeps on my Anytone at 5555. Canadian Radio TV guy, nice to have you on board. My Ethon Elite Field has a minor issue with the fading display. It came like that from the manufacturing. The display is still readable, but the receiver never gets hot at my desk in the garage. Yeah, that could be another problem. It could be simply a faulty display. It could simply be a faulty display. Canadian TV guy says, one time I didn't notice after leaving my Ethon FR X5 on the front porch and the sunlight to listen to music while I was gardening. The display totally faded. Yeah, but after being back inside for a while, I went back to normal. Display works fine. I actually have forgotten one of my radios once in the sunlight in the summer, in a hot day. And instead of being faded, I still remember the display was a big black square. It's like every segment that existed, every cell that existed in that LCD display were now all lit up. And I thought, oh man, I left it in the sunshine. It's gone. The display's dead. Brought it back home, inside it in the shade, and as it cooled down, the display came back to normal. But we got to be careful because hot, sunny days can really mess up an LCD display. Mike, nice to have you here from Kentucky. Danny Shortwave Radio DX. I got rid of that annoying beep through the menu settings. It's a great CB radio, and the weather band reception is pretty good too. Oh yeah, it's amazing. I'm getting on the weather band with the discount here now. I'm getting actually three stations, like on the scanner radio. So I'm getting channel 3, which is 162.475 from Sherbrooke. I'm getting the Vermont station on 162.400. And I'm getting the Montreal one on 162.55. It's very sensitive on the weather channels. That's definitely very sensitive. And because my discount is up, I've been doing some satellite tracking on the ICOM on the bottom here. I've been plugging it back with the computer control. I actually now dished out money and paid for the full version of Ham Radio Deluxe, the latest version they have. I use it a lot, and I used it a lot over time. And I thought, okay, you know what? I think it's not a bad idea to. It's not a bad idea to, you know, to really just what was I just got distracted here on the I was looking at something. Okay. So man, I forgot what I was talking about. Gardening totally faded and bringing back to normal. I don't know why. I completely forgot what I was talking about. Darn it. I hit it. I'm sorry, guys. It's like I got like too much information at the same time. So the beeps and everything, and yeah. Oh yeah. KC9KUH, nice to have you here, my friend. Man, what was I talking about? I completely lost it. It went off of my mind completely. Can Radio TV guy says that had nothing to do with the fact that I couldn't see the LCD backlight and the sunlight, but I bought it back and I could only see the green backlight. Everything else was faded for a few minutes. Yeah. Well, welcome, Scott, KC2C80. And we are here twice a week on Wednesday, North America style, at 8 p.m. Eastern, 0 hours UTC. And we are on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 20 hours UTC. So we have fun talking about radio. Welcome aboard, my friend. Chris, G7. Oops, let me just go back here. So we have Chris, G7 VEO. We are radio geeks to the public, but when the communication system goes down, we are not geeks. Oh, no. Michael Thompson. Yeah, my SWR is pretty good. Pretty good. In general, here it's pretty good with the antenna. Jay says, sure, realistically, shortwave won't make a revival, but in hypothetical terms, mainstream communication channels, social media, YouTube, are experiencing slow censorship and information. With YouTube demonetizing non-advertiser-friendly content and Instagram having users to pay for basic privacy, shortwave has always been a middle ground communication channel. I can see shortwave having a contemporary revamp on this contest. You know, that's our viewpoint. Us, our knowledge gives us that side where I think we all understand that shortwave is the best way to bring information from point A to point B when needed, and that yes, it can suffer jamming. Look at the amount of, when we talk about information going through somewhere, when some government entity doesn't like it, look at the amount of money that China is spending on jamming what they don't want going through. But it goes back to what I was saying about ACJB. When the Mailbag show was on, they're saying that, yeah, we do get letters from Russia. We get letters because jamming and the nature of shortwave broadcasting means that, yeah, one day you'll wake up, maybe 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row, it's jammed, there's nothing to do. But one day you'll tune that radio to that frequency and it's like, oh, I'm not hearing the jammer today. Why? Because shortwave propagation's changed. And that station is actually coming through. It's not as efficient to jam foreign broadcasts on shortwave as it is to switch off the internet. And, there's not a lot of medium that can go and talk and have information flow from point A to point B like shortwave and get your viewpoint across. When you shut off the internet, you don't have any means of communicating. But even if we're not talking about big broadcasters, if you're talking about, look at pirate stations. How many people might use low-powered transmitters to start broadcasting news or information on shortwave in times where things are going bad to keep everybody informed? Look at how many countries around the world right now that need decent news sources that they aren't incapable of getting at all in their own country. There is a need for shortwave, definitely. We all understand that shortwave is the best way that you can use to actually have that happening. Even better, what does shortwave offer to you? Not only the possibility of hearing, let's call it truth, or let's call it simply more of a real world that is out there. It does it in a way that you can be very and totally anonymous. I mean, you guys, I'm not anonymous. You're not anonymous anywhere on the internet. You might be using a VPN. It still doesn't prevent you from being tracked down. And there's been tons of examples of crimes being done with the internet using VPNs where the cops, they track all the way and they track you down all the way. Makes it harder, much harder, but it's not zero. When we so many people come back to me and say, I don't understand those number stations. They could send crypted messages through the internet, which is so much better. Yeah, but point A to point B on the internet there's a way to track you. The CIA, the whatever government agency you want to use from different countries, they have tools. You have no idea how amazing things they can actually do and find out. So send encrypted messages from, you send a encrypted message from Moscow, Russia to somebody in the United States. It's trackable, and it's trackable who received it too, where. But imagine a number station with somebody with a very a Texan portable receiver in the middle of nowhere in its little apartment somewhere, capable of receiving that signal. No tracking. You might have a tracking of where it comes from with triangulation and all. You have no idea who received it. You have no idea who received it, where he was, and it's way more anonymous rather than the internet. And I understand why a lot Russia and a lot of countries are still using shortwave for their number stations for spy. I mean, the person receiving it at the other end cannot be more anonymous. There's no way of tracking who received it. We're all listening to it. It could be you, it could be me, it could be whoever. No way of tracking. Nobody knows. But people can, through the internet, find a way to track where it's received. So, there's shortwave definitely has a huge advantage for information that you want to send out. And I mean, shortwave. Let's go back once again to the 80s. We talk about fake news a lot on social media and the internet in general. Think about fake news on shortwave. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of fake news on shortwave back in the 80s and 70s. Soviet life being perfect and beautiful, and let's all be happy and communist. And the other side is true too. We're all happy and perfectly happy in our world in the United States, which is untrue. It's untrue on any type of way society is. There's a lot of what we see and reality behind the scenes is two different things. And so fake news is not new. Fake news has always been there. Fake news existed on shortwave. There was some fake news on shortwave. I mean, come on. What's the perfect way of sending out fake news? Shortwave was a great way of sending out fake news. That's for sure, But whatever it is, fake news, whatever it is, real information, shortwave is amazing because it will go through. You have no power over, what country is sending out to another country. If that's why shortwave was so popular back then. The two major ideologies of Western bloc countries versus communism. We could send out, each could send out its rhetoric, its news, its whatever they want to say to the other side. It was just going through. Russia spent billions of dollars in jamming, but from the reports of different stations, regularly listeners could tune in to Western broadcasts. There's a lot of jamming, but if Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, were useless, they would not be broadcasting. They were not useless. They were jammed, but jamming doesn't work everywhere, and there were people in the Soviet Union that were receiving these broadcasts. Like in China. There are people in China that, they might hear the CNR1 jammer all the time on a frequency, but I can bet you that there are regular times, from time to time, they tune that radio. It's like, oh, today no jammer, or a very weak jammer. I can actually listen to Radio Free Asia, or whatever station they're blocking. BBC World Service. And shortwave definitely is, and we all know it because we know what shortwave's capable of. We know what shortwave's all about. It would be sad that shortwave would be left behind, and nobody would have kept a knowledge of what it could do when things turn bad, because knowing that is a possibility. Look at countries around the world where things are not going that well. It's interesting because there's a lot of, have you noticed in the broadcast schedules, there's a lot of these clandestine stations renting airtime over transmitter sites. There's Radio Darason, something like that it's called. And there's quite a few of them actually. Why are they renting airtime on actual transmitter sites? Because they know that a lot of these countries, people have radios, and they can't give their own opinion, their own way of they can't say what they want to say through the internet. It's blocked. It's censored. But they know that hey, if I rent that 500 kilowatt transmitter from Issoudun, France, or whatever, and broadcast to my country, my own country, my message might be going across with all the people that have shortwave radios. If that didn't work, they wouldn't spend that money to buy transmitter time. It's because somewhere it does work, and people are getting other news through that. But it's an interesting conversation, Jay. It's something we got to think about. We are in our little place here. I sit here. I do this stream on YouTube, and I look about shortwave bands and how amazing what could happen there. But honestly, I think we all feel kind of a little helpless when we see something disappear. We always have the impression that we pretty much have no voice, no way of preventing that from happening. Makes us sad also, because I think we all understand that apart from the fact that these are disappearing, we understand the importance of these stations from still being there. That they should not be leaving. It's something, but that's why I always say, when people ask me, well, shortwave, in 50 years, shortwave, nothing's going to be on there. No, you're going to have stations on shortwave in 50 years, even in 100 years from now, because it will always be the only medium that people easily, with a cheap radio, can still hear a voice from somewhere else telling them, now I don't like to use the word truth, but telling them about the opinions of others on what's happening in their countries. Matt, MDK2, nice to have you on board, my friend. Aerial imaging getting gray line propagation of CRI in Spanish from central China, 9710. Cool. William Helms, remember channel 19 is where to tune with an SWR. 20 is half of 40. Doesn't make it the frequency on the channel, the middle frequency of the 11 meter band. Yeah. What I've been doing is I've been checking 20. Or 19, but you're saying 19 is better. I've been checking mostly from 1 to 40 and trying to find a compromise from 1 to 40. So, Scott says Kentucky is popular tonight. It's like Massachusetts. Sometimes we have all of these guys from Massachusetts, and you're like, wow, there's a big chunk of radio listeners in Massachusetts. So, what else do we have? Jerry says, too much vodka and cranberry juice. Nah. What else do we have? Dimitri, what did I do? Sensory overload. What did I do? I'm feeling like it's too much. I have this. Sometimes I'm kind of stressed out of, not because things are bad or anything. It's just that my body is just hyped. Dimitri, nice to have you on board. I'm radio satellite. Yeah, okay. That's the thing. Okay. Yeah. I purchased Hammer Eater Deluxe and doing some testing on on the uh, the tram discount to see how well I received these satellites. Thanks for reminding me, guys. Oh man, Daniel, nice to have you here. 2 watts and CW can transmit information across the world to be rebroadcast locally by low power FM. Yeah, I love shortwave. Mike says I love shortwave radio, but let's be serious here. It's all mostly propaganda. Everything's propaganda, and it's not just shortwave. Even your local media. It's not worse on shortwave than it is on local media. Everything is somewhat of propaganda. Why do we have 3-4 different networks in our own country? If we look carefully, each has a different tone on events and on things happening. Each has their own propaganda within our own country. So shortwave is not worse. It's just the propaganda of different countries rather than the propaganda of our own country. But it's not worse. William Helms, same as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You are feared and ridiculed for being different until you're mobbed for your possession of something or a unique gift to bail the haters out of a jam. Yep, absolutely. Chaz Tank, get a show like Sons of Anarchy, but dealing with shortwave. The shortwave community will explode overnight. Sons of Radio. Let's build that. Sons of Radio. Canadian Radio TV guy says, I always thought that the whole number station concept would make a great television series. It would. It's because I don't have time, because if I had a lot of time on my hands, there's so many things I would like to do, like a series on YouTube, like create a channel, like we could create a channel called the Number Station. And from there have episodes of A Spy in the Field. I'm sure that would catch on. Hey, Skip, it happens all the time. I lose my train of thought. When there's too much information in front of me, that's why I never touch my phones, pretty much. I touched my phones because I wanted to check if anybody had checked in through the email. And I saw an email that distracted me, and I was completely gone. I was like, okay, I'm somewhere else now. It's just crazy. Oh, God. Yeah, that is, yeah. And like Daniel says, propaganda is someone's true news. For sure. For sure. Scott, if you go by shortwave radio, the U.S. is the most religious place on earth. Oh, yeah. And I'm a Christian and not making fun, but there are other things I enjoy. Yeah. It's like, comments I get from time to time is like, yeah. All I hear is religious stations on the shortwave bands. Yeah, I get it. Robert Cross, nice to have you on board. Bonne nuit, TVDXer. Fais attention à toi. Et à samedi, possiblement. Mike, isn't Facebook the new shortwave? Not really. Facebook is the new whatever. Facebook is like this world of people that all know something. They all have an opinion about things they have no idea how they talk about. So Robert Cross is 2:32 in the morning in Ireland, which is 2:41 now. So I guess he can't sleep. Dimitri, the government can track the people on any device which is connected to the internet. Absolutely. I mean, your phone tracks you all the time. You know what? Best example. Today, I was looking at my phone, and I went to a store 2 weeks ago that I never go to. And today, I get a pop-up here that says, Google Maps wants to know, how did you find your travels to that store? And I'm like, okay. It's coming back to me 2 weeks later saying, well, 2 weeks ago you went there. So what do you think? Okay. It's everything's striking us terribly, Danny, shortwave radio DX, Radio Marti is probably the biggest example of shortwave being used. They relayed their news and programming back to Cuba. Yep. If that was, and I mean, they're jammed. There's tons of jamming on Radio Marti. I hear it from time to time here. I mean, if it was jammed and never going there, they would not do that. They know that it actually does get into Cuba. Like 2112 says, they said 50 years ago shortwave will be gone in 50 years. Look what it didn't happen. Yep. Robert Cross listening to Radio China tonight. Canadian Radio TV guy. Remember when I was younger on my Realistic DX66, I was receiving some sort of data burst that sounded like a pager in the VHF aircraft band around 129 megahertz, just past the local airport on 128. Danny Shortwave says, Cuba must spend millions jamming Radio Marti. If not millions, I'm sure it's a lot of money. Well, it's probably millions. I mean, they're jamming all of the Radio Marti frequencies. Not only that, what is even worse is that they leave the jammer on, and sometimes it's 24 hours on the same frequency. It's like, yeah, Radio Marti's been gone for the past 3 hours and you're still jamming. And we're hearing that all the time. Hey, Dimitri. Russia was not necessarily jamming all, but they were jamming a big chunk of them. A big chunk of the stations abroad. Absolutely, Dimitri. I mean, it was crazy. Russia was totally jamming so much. Tomer H. Ricker. I'm 16 and still gullible about where I place my antenna. Okay. Korean Radio TV guy says, I took a break from listening to radio to watch some TV. I still remember I was tuned to channel 18 cable TV. And in the TV's audio, I was hearing the exact same data burst noise I heard on the DX66. Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. Kevin, good show. I live in a condo in LA. Would like to know if there is an antenna I can buy or make to put up in the attic. MLA30. Go on eBay or anywhere. Even Amazon, I think, has some. MLA30 is your best bet in a condo for being able to receive shortwave signals. Jay says, right, space race who? It's all about air race. Yep. Harry Anderson, what conditions should I look for that make for a good band? Just turn on the radio and tune. Don't look at conditions. I feel people are way overhyped at looking at numbers and forget about listening. Because turn on the radio and just tune around all the time at different times of day. You'll see naturally a pattern and when things are good. Jay says, looking at these governments keeping up their towers, there's obviously some merit behind shortwave. The aim would be pushing the importance into the hands of the mainstream individuals. One of the things also, Jay, you know what? I think one of the biggest problems that the modern day countries have, all countries have deficits and have a hard time getting their budget across correctly. And you know what? When your country goes into a deficit, which is never a good thing, what does the government do? They have the choice of cutting populations' benefits of some sort, which is never a good thing because then they're not going to vote for you again. Or, oh, look at that. We have that shortwave thing that costs $100 million a year. 100 million. We could get 100 million. Who knows what that is? Nobody listens to shortwave. I'm going to take it off. And they just scooped 100 million. Us, we noticed they're not there anymore, but the average Joe of a country doesn't have any idea. I mean, great example, Radio Canada International. If you ask the regular folks on the streets, hey, do you listen to Radio Canada International, or do you know what Radio Canada International is? They would come back to you and say, what? What's that? Radio Canada International? What's that? Yeah, it's our voice to the world. Nobody knew about it. Like, I'm pretty sure the majority of Americans have no idea that the Voice of America exists and broadcasts to other countries around the world. You know, go out in the street in New York and ask, hey, you know what's VOA? What? Yeah. What's Voice of America? What? That's CNN? No, it's not. The majority of folks don't know these exist. It's even worse in the US because Voice of America is not allowed to broadcast to the US citizens and doesn't even correspond to US citizens. At least Radio Canada International did. And, you know, it's one of those things that it's hard to go to because you're like, I think some people know, yeah, it's important because, you know, it's a voice from our country to the world, but most of the times money is what decides why it goes away. And so Canadian TV guy says Channel 18 CAT cable TV was CMT Music, Country Music Television, when we still had analog cable. And I still remember that night they were airing America's Funniest Home Videos. MD Sorov, nice to have you here. Where are you located, MD Sorov? Okay. Skip, number stations figuring in the plot of Truth Seekers TV show. Yeah, I watched that. The Lincolnshire Poacher. They have the Lincolnshire Poacher. You know what? I need to rewatch that. It's not for those that have Amazon Prime and want to have a part of number station style history. So in the first episodes, the guy there, I won't give out any details of what, you know, it's supposed to be a comedy that is based on, you know, those Ghost Chasers type series or shows. I never thought it was very funny, honestly. I thought that it missed the point in being funny, but it was still nonetheless interesting to listen to or watch. And it has the Lincolnshire Poacher in it, and it is interesting. If anybody that has Amazon Prime, check out Truth Seekers. There's you know, it's decent and it's watchable. You guys gonna like it, especially with the number station in it. Kamagzi 76, you know what they're all saying? The victors write the history books. Yep. Aerial imaging. I moved the MLA30 out away from the building further and got a major performance gain. It's outperforming a sloper wire now in a lot of places. Yeah, you know, it's a question of positioning it right, for sure. Scott says there's a cool phone app that will transcribe Morse code. Probably most beeps aren't Morse code. Yeah, and amateur bands or whatever is Morse code. It works. It works well on any Morse code sent by a computer. Where it has a hard time often is when Morse code is sent by a human, since the human Morse code sent is not always very precise in its frequency. Apps have a hard time actually decoding with human sent code. Frank Ireland, nice to have you on board from Venice, Florida. Received his Slinky dipole today. We'll set it up on Saturday and we'll try it both on transmit and receive. Cool. That's the thing, having fun, honestly. Dimitri, what else we have? Um, Tomer says, sorry that cut off, but I put up against the wall where my cable guy said there was internet pass through going behind my MLA 30. It's not impossible. And it's not impossible that you get some interference from like cable or, in the back here. I always suspected my sloper getting a lot of interference from the cables, which are Bell Canada phone lines and fiber optics. And I always thought that some of the noise must come from there. DJ Farlow, hearing something on frequency 4985, 4990, maybe RTTY. Yeah, that is, I think it's from the East Coast. It's encrypted RTTY coming out of the US Navy. It's there all day here. I hear it all day. Doug, I have a grinding shortwave radio that when I turn on, it can't hear anything, but if I squeeze it, it starts to get reception. Well, probably when you hold it. You say you squeeze it, but probably when you hold it. A lot of portable radios, when you hold it, actually it improves the reception of that portable receiver. It's kind of it's as if we're making a complete circuit. When we hold it, our bodies technically are kind of a makeshift ground for a lot of receivers, and often it actually changes reception. Ham Reader DX, nice to have you here. Jason VE9JMC. RCI is owned by CBC. We lost the transmitting station near the Sackville transmitter many years ago. Absolutely. That was the problem is the CBC, and it's still going on today with the internet side of RCI. The CBC wants to kill RCI and always wanted to destroy what was and take that money and incorporate that money into their own broadcasts. Cool, Ham Radio DX. Hope you enjoyed the stream and have fun. What else do we have? Log 2112, Radio Canada International was one of the first 3 or 4 stations I ever heard on shortwave in the early 70s. I remember having finding it, when you start on listening to shortwave and you're a young teenage guy that's amazed by everything. Just hearing Radio Canada from Sackville was such a thrilling and amazing thing. It's pretty Chris says the review of the new Chameleon CHARXL loop antenna looked good for receive. Okay. Kind of interesting. Canadian Radio TV guy makes me wonder if there was some sort of e-skip that night. I heard the data burst on 129 megahertz. I mean, it would have to be very high frequency, have very good sporting e-skip. Hey, Sheldon Harvey. Good evening. Nice to have you here from Greenfield Park, Quebec. Nice to have you on board. What else do we have? What do we have? Hey, I'm done the chat finally. Finally. Tomer says by MLA30, if I squeeze a copper loop, it can make makeshift ground and get a better signal. Okay. Hey, I'm Radio DX from Tasmania, Australia. Nice to have you here from the other side of the world. We are here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, northeast part of North America. And we've got and reached the bottom of the chat. Pretty cool. So, shortwave radio is, we all, I think, for all of us that are and have been listening for such a long time, we actually understand the importance of what shortwave is all about and how important it could be in times when we need to send information to another country, to whatever. There's, I think, unfortunately, this big misconception that there's this misunderstanding almost of the internet has replaced shortwave in getting information across. But it's so far from the truth, because the internet can be, if the internet would be that like autonomous thing that nobody can control, okay, yeah, but it's not the case. It's cables and wires coming into a country. If something happens, first thing the government's going to do is shut off that thing. And we see it across the world. Every country that has problems, what happens when the people starts demonstrating? How do they meet? They text each other. They go through social media. They want to meet through the internet. What do? Let's cut off the internet. Let's cut off the cell, the cell coverage. No more SMS, no more text messages, no more internet. Nobody can talk to each other. We're happy. Where do you go next? Shortwave. Shortwave is where you go next. And we understood that a lot in the Cold War. Where do you go next when you want to talk to your enemy on the other side? Because, they had us as their enemies and we had them as their enemies. And our enemies were there, and it's the way it is. Sorry, guys. I think you guys heard that, which is Google Maps. We're talking Google Maps earlier. I think they're spying on me. It says like, so are you going to give that review of that place you went to weeks ago? I mean, shortwave is the only way that we can communicate around the world in times of when things go bad. I sincerely hope that we don't get to a point where nothing's out there. And I mean, there must be thousands and thousands of transmitters that are unused that could be quite quickly put up in work to send out signals on shortwave. But oh man, when things go well or relatively well, we lose that sense that, well, that thing, we don't need it anymore. Everything's perfect. The world is beautiful. And I think we can just be safe until something bad happens and you got rid of all the ways that you could communicate, like shortwave, and understand that, yeah, you're kind of screwed now because you just like destroyed everything that was a way to give out information, Dr. Sisop, nice to have you here. Arturo, nice to have you here from Grass Valley, California. Dr. Sisop is in Georgia. Michael Godet says, question, the Malahite clone that you purchase, where did I purchase? There are so many clones. Look, I don't want to necessarily give out where I purchased it, but what I understand is that the ones that have the big buttons on the side and they're really nice speakers on the back, these are the ones you need to buy, and they are more expensive. They are, they fell on the floor in the wet. They are more expensive, and they are better, kind of better in the way they work. But think about the fact that if you buy a Chinese clone, there's a risk going with it. But I'm surprised at it. But I don't want to necessarily share my link where I got it from. Arturo, hoping the summer bands from Asia start improving. Where are you located, Arturo? You are in California? Okay. In California, you should be hearing a lot of Asian stuff, honestly. West Coast is very, very, very good towards Asia. That's for sure. Leonard Thomas, nice to have you here from Georgia, USA. And Arturo, West Coast is getting Radio New Zealand all the time. If you tune right now to 15720, you should be getting it. West Coast is getting it like real crazy strong. I can tell you that. Check it out here. Broad Skilling, nice to have you on board. Getting my shortwave fix on this stream just off work. Cool. Jason, V9JMC. Got a Radio Miami International 93.99.5. Yep. Dr. Sisop, you need to get that 980 SSB modified so much better. Yeah, I know. There's a lot of stuff. I've been looking at so many YouTube videos of all the modifications you can do on that thing. Michael, controlling information is the start to control of a society. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Dave, why do pirates near 40 meters transmit on upper sideband instead of lower sideband? It's just a convention. There's no official rule. So what happens is, if we consider the logic behind it, that I would see personally, is that except for the amateur bands would have, the upper, like 20 meters and up, even 30 meters and up, have upper sideband. And below 20 meters, you get lower sideband. Everything on shortwave utility is 99% upper sideband. So they probably just adapt to the fact that everything outside the AM bands is upper sideband. Let's be upper sideband, but it's not all of them. There's been some pirates that are lower sideband also. But I think they're just following a rule. And it's like the amateur bands. Why are people doing this mode on that frequency and so on? You don't have to. Somebody can go on, 14200 and do FT8 if they want. There's no official rule or regulation that prevents you from doing that. But there are basic rules that hams will actually follow. And this is, it's like you could be on 10 meters and lower sideband. Nothing prevents you from doing that. You could be on 28,400 and say, hey, call CQ on lower sideband. People are going to find you weird, but there's no regulation that prevents you from doing it. You're allowed if you want. But they made regulations, they made rules that everybody follows to make sure that everything stays civilized. And I think pirate radio stations are simply following rules like that to make it civilized. That's it. Chastang, I feel fortunate to have intercepted very interesting transmissions back in the 80s, 90s, like catching by accident guerrillas shutting down government stations and vice versa. Radio Free Grenada being knocked out by U.S. Navy. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. I remember reading those that were listening to Radio Kuwait, with the people at Radio Kuwait actually asking for help while Iraq was invading. There's so much going through. Sheldon has a recording of that announcer on Radio Peking or Beijing back then, when the Tiananmen Square massacre pretty much happened. I mean, that guy disappeared and never got heard of again. Shortwave is at the forefront of world events, and it's amazing all we could hear. I have a recording that I'm trying to find here on a tape. One of the first recordings of Radio Moscow in 1986. So we just, by the way, April 26th, we just passed the 35th anniversary of the Chernobyl nuclear accident. When that happened, it took a little bit of time. It took a couple of days for Russia to actually acknowledge something happened. They had to, because all the stations, the nuclear power stations, like in Sweden and everywhere in Europe, were going nuts with alarms saying, wow, there's radiation here, that nobody knew where it came from. And I have one of the first, on a tape here, I have one of the first broadcasts of Radio Moscow, and it's a female announcer saying there's been an accident at the Chernobyl nuclear plant in the Ukraine. How can you be more at the forefront of live news of what's happening with shortwave than that? It was crazy. It was crazy. Broad scaling. There's tons of things out there. You got to go and find a way to get them. This hobby is not getting more expensive. Actually, this hobby has never been so cheap with the amazing radios we got for the price. You know, what's expensive? In 1980, if shortwave would have been like this and you had to pay $400 for a radio that was not even half of how these portables today perform, that would have been expensive. There's nothing expensive about our hobby today. You, for $75, $80, get, a radio that is super sensitive, gets single sideband. There's nothing expensive about our hobby today. It could be if you get higher end devices, radios and stuff, but it's definitely not expensive at all. At all. Torme Ricker says, live in South Dakota. Hear a lot of things from Mexico. Spanish is language I can't understand, but the music is nice. Log 2112 has Gander on 8891. Jerry Carnes referring back to the number stations or similar clandestine stations. Russia's ghost station called the Buzzer is an interesting YouTube video to watch. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. You know, the Buzzer has so much hype to it of how it's mysterious and what it could be or not. And, you know, it's one of those, even number stations are mysterious, you know. You know, Tomer, music, radio stations broadcast what they want. And it's fine that stations broadcast only music if they want to do so. And that's, you know, WRMI does a lot of it. WTWW has a lot of music airtime in the evening. It's fine. Why not? Why not? Keeps shortwave alive, anyways. The export, yep. I've got an advanced look at some interesting information on it. So it's coming. It is coming, guys. I even have had an advanced look at its what it'll look like. So I'll keep you guys posted. What else do we have? William Moser, nice to have you here. Danny Shortwave Radio DX says, yes, it is cheaper to get in a hobby today. Absolutely. Absolutely. It costs less money to get something that is decent today than, you know, when I started in 1982. Hey, a radio today, imagine. A Texan PL330 does it all. Is a million times better than the realistic DX100 crap that I had in 1982. That did cost $100, which was much more expensive than what we get for a Texan PL330, honestly. The Device 9, when the Cold War crumbled, Radio Prague had a tearful announcement show with apologies for all the the BS they had previously pushed. You know, one of the broadcasts, I should try to find that and put it on. Radio Berlin International, they were not happy when the wall filmed on and when they were kind of integrated into the Deutsche Welle. And their last broadcast, it's obvious that these guys are not happy what's happening with the GDR. And it is interesting. It would be nice to maybe find it and post it or play it now. I'm trying to find out, where did I get this? Let me just, guys, check something here with this. If I can find, so Germany, vintage, and let me check out if I can find something with that. I mean, it's very, that's Radio Berlin. Oh, I got it, guys. Final English broadcasts in 1990. I got it. So if you guys want to hear it or part of it, because I'm going to cut where there's music so monetization doesn't go sour. This is an interesting one. So this is Radio Berlin from 1990. You guys want to hear that? I don't want to annoy you guys also with older broadcasts, but if you guys want to hear it, I'm going to put it on for sure. What else do we have? John Doe. Hey, Jill, just got in listening to Alex Jones 4840 in St. Louis, Missouri. Are you opened up there in Montreal? No, we're still closed down. Pretty much everything is still closed down. But with the vaccination going on right now and everything, I think we're close to starting to open up. But they're taking their times. Canada is still pretty heavy. Alberta, Ontario are two provinces where it's not going very well. So I think everybody's taking their time. Mongoose, nice to have you on board. Enjoy your channel more than shortwave radio and ham radio. Nice to have you here, my friend. So, Chastang, the night the Berlin Wall came down, the airways were packed in all parts of the Europe. Military frequencies are not silent either. I'm sure. Tomer says if you put it into some radios that from the 80s that were $1,000, 3,000 US bucks now because of inflation. Yep. Jason VE9 JMC says it cost me $20 for a cheap USB dongle and SDR sharp to get me back into the hobby. Now I upgraded with an SDR player SP1A receiver and love it. The receive sensitivity is on par with a Yaesu FT1000 Mark V. It's crazy, eh? It's crazy when you think about it. Dark Noise, nice to have you here from the Netherlands. There's YouTube has a lot of stuff, Device 9 on shortwave. If you know how to search, but there's also, I'm on the intervalsignal.net website where they have interval signals in general, but they do have this. So let's take a listen, guys, to Radio Berlin International. Radio Berlin International. Last broadcast. And you got, here it goes. That's the interval signal. So this is October 2nd, 1990.
You're tuned to Radio Berlin International, the voice of the German Democratic Republic, with a program of news, current affairs and features for listeners in Europe. Here begins the news.
First, the main points of the news. At the CSCE Foreign Ministers meeting in New York, the GDR has acknowledged the duty of Germans to help preserve peace. The GDR Parliament is meeting in Berlin today for the last time before the unification of the two German states. Britain has come out against permanent UN Security Council membership for Germany. The United States House of Representatives has called on President George Bush to concentrate on diplomacy in solving the Gulf crisis. And that's the end of the news.
And that was the final news bulletin from the English section of Radio Berlin International. My name is Robin Mitchell, head of the English section, and I'm here to host this final program from the German Democratic Republic for you. At midnight tonight, my country, the German Democratic Republic, will cease to exist. Earlier this year, the two leading Christian Democrats of the two Germanys said, "No one will be worse off than before once Germany is united." Well, I would like to point out two errors. One is that there are already more than 2 million people in this country who are out of a job and far worse off than before. And the second error is that there is no unification of two Germanys, but rather an annexation of the leftovers of 40 years of so-called socialism by the Big Brother. And that is exactly what has happened between Deutsche Welle of Cologne and Radio Berlin International. After much sweet talk about a fusion and merger on an equal footing, what is happening is that Radio Berlin International will disappear tonight, and that Deutsche Welle will have taken over our frequencies and our transmitters tomorrow. Out of a total staff of 250 RBI employees, a mere handful might get a new job with Deutsche Welle. Thus, like for so many in this country, Unification Day spells unemployment for many of my colleagues. The champagne of jubilation has a very bitter taste to it. But let's turn to our final program. First off, Wolfram Bielenstein will present his press review of the last GDR papers. Then, both the director of Radio Berlin International and Deutsche Welle will have the chance to put forward their positions. And we also decided to dip into our international mailbag for our final program. But before Wolfram Bielenstein takes over for his press review, Mixmaster Steve has selected some music for you.
So as you see, they're not a handful are going to Deutsche Welle. So, I think not everybody was happy of the change, but that these are times. These are times when things happen. Man. Paul says, can old cable TV coax cause interference with the MLA30? My new installation is 1 foot below dead cable line. When it rotated, the MLA noise went from near zero into the red almost instantly. If it's still plugged into and somehow to the cable company, definitely some noise can come out of there, for sure. But if it's not plugged in, there could be some other source of interference also. Dan, nice to have you here from Ohio and AWJZ. I'm not Chuck. Nice to have you here. John Doe says, did Kenwood build good shortwave radios in the 90s, like R2000, R300? I really like how the buttons and knobs. I owned a Kenwood R5000 from about 1990-ish all the way to 2008-9 when I purchased the ICOM ICRD 500, and it was a amazingly good shortwave receiver. Kenwood did make good receivers back then, absolutely. Larry Anderson, nice to have you on board from the birthplace of Elvis. Cool. Or JD Dakota, I do miss every one of those stations and voices. Dimitri always enjoys listening to all kinds of music on shortwave. Chris66, thank you for playing that historic broadcast from East Germany. Jason, yep. Let's how about we end the show with a few broadcasts from shortwave past. I think that could be fun tonight. Let's check out what we have. Radio Grenada. I don't run Radio Grenada shortwave. If there's anything there. Okay, nothing much there. Let's try to get some old broadcasts here. So radio, Sofia. 1975, Radio Sofia, Bulgaria, African service in English, signing on. Okay, let's check that out. Let's check out what's there. 1975, guys.
This is Sofia, Bulgaria, calling Africa. This is Sofia, Bulgaria, calling Africa.
Take care, Christian Marco. Stay safe.
Radio Sofia broadcasts in English to Africa every evening at 19:05 hours Greenwich Mean Time in the 16 and 25 meter bands, and at 21:05 hours Greenwich Mean Time in the 16, 25, and 31 meter bands.
Good evening, everyone. First, now the news. The announcement of the Bulgarian News Agency of February the 15th, in connection with the recent developments of the Cyprus problem.
Okay, that ended abruptly. What else do we have? We have a broadcast from... This is Radio Denmark on shortwave in January of 73.
This is Radio Denmark, Shortwave Department, Copenhagen, calling Southeast Asia in the 19 meter band, 15.165 megacycles. This station broadcasts exclusively in Danish. Danmarks Radio, vi sender til Sydasien på 19,78 meter, 15,165 megacycles.
That was Radio Denmark. We have... What is this? Radio Norway International. I remember always finding weird Radio Norway International that had English broadcasts only on Sunday. That was so weird.
Dette er Norge, NRK utenlandssendingen. Klokken er 12 UTC, og vi sender program 1 til Øst-Asia på 12,070 kHz.
Like Jason says, we have to stay and not give up on shortwave.
Og Australia på 15,735 kHz, og til Nord-Amerika, Øst- og Sentral- og Mellom-Amerika på 18,950 kHz.
Vel møtt til denne sendingen fra Norge.
Okay, so there's... This one is... Radio Tirana. Radio Tirana. Let me check it out here. Radio Tirana. From... Yeah, that's the one of the death of their leader. Radio Tirana in English. That's a recording of April 11th, 1985. April 11th, 1985. So that is Radio Tirana. Can you hear the...
Announcement. the Central Committee of the Party of Labour of
The
Albania,
woodpecker in the background.
the Presidium of the People's Assembly of the People's Socialist Republic of Albania, the Council of Ministers of the People's Socialist Republic of Albania, the General Council of the Democratic Front of Albania. Comrades, communists, workers,
communists,
collectivists,
workers,
intellectuals,
shortwave listeners of this
and the
channel.
youth of Albania,
Let's all
veterans of
unite
the war and
in our
compatriots.
communist dreams of bringing back shortwave.
With the deepest grief, we inform you that today, the 11th of April 1985, at 2 hours 15, the heart of the beloved and glorious leader of the party and
The glorious
people,
leader.
Comrade Enver Hoxha, First Secretary of the Central Committee of the Party of Labour of Albania, Chairman of the General Council of the Democratic Front of Albania,
Dang.
Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces,
Yes.
ceased to beat. The founder of our glorious party, the organizer and leader of the National Liberation War and of our people's revolution, the architect of the construction of the new socialist Albania, departed from our ranks forever.
He departed forever.
The heroic commander of our National Liberation Army, he who created the Democratic Front and laid the foundations of the people's power, closed his eyes.
He closed his eyes. Oh, man. Radio Pyongyang. By popular demand. And by the way, I salute you, Kim Jong-un, watching this stream tonight. I'm pretty sure. Hope you are well. That would be kind of funny. You know, it's like he's not saying anything. He's not here, but he's watching to see if we hear Korea. Do we hear North Korea and North America?
Of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
This is Radio Pyongyang of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
What I always found the funniest thing in the world is that every darn communist country in the world is always the democratic country of something. It's the Democratic People's Republic of something, you know? But they're all communists. So if one day it's called the Democratic People's Republic of Canada, you'll know that we went to the bad side.
This is Radio Pyongyang of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
This is Radio Pyongyang of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
Oh, God. Welcome to the People's Democratic Shortwave country of YouTube. My comrades, you're all welcome. But please, you have to work until you die. Thank you. I need to be rich. I'm gonna make it funny, but in another way, it's not funny. You know? And now the dear leader, Gilles, he's gonna talk. Comrades, friends, people that are helping my stream, please send all of your money, please, because as the leader of this Democratic Republic of Shortwave, we need help. We need to make sure as many people in the world are together. Send me all your money.
Now here's what you can hear in this transmission. First, the news, and then you hear a song. Next, an account under the title. In Korea, the economy develops in a planned way.
Hey, RJ Dakota, if all it needs for me to get a millionaire to be made Paul the leader of the Shortwave Democratic Republic. Paul is the leader of the Shortwave Democratic Republic. I can tell you that. Take care, Scott.
Here is the news. A seminar on the work of Comrade Kim Jong-il, member of the Presidium.
That's an old one. It was Kim Jong-il back then.
Of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea. Let us march forward dynamically along the road of socialism and communism under the
Let's march forward dynamically in the world of communism.
Was held by the Great
I like that.
Idea Study Group.
Come on, guys. We have to march forward in the world of communism.
On the 24th.
It's evidence. Come on. Can't you see they're all happy and smiling in those videos?
Mentioned the main contents at work in his report and continued. The work of the real leader, Comrade Kim Jong-il, is a programmatic one which shows the road for most correct construction of socialism and communism.
Now that is talking nonsense. And here we have the Voice of South Africa, Radio RSA. And this is from a broadcast of 1989 on the shortwave bands, of course. This one brings me so much in time. Chairman Paul has decided today that Friskies is the only food we can all consume.
Radio RSA, the Voice of South Africa in Johannesburg.
Paul will decide which one you get, which is usually the one he doesn't want to eat. So be prepared. Paul will choose his favorite. Whatever is left, you guys will get the Friskies. That's the People's Democratic Shortwave Association and World Leadership.
The time is 2 hours Universal Time. This is Radio RSA, the Voice of South Africa, broadcasting from Johannesburg, and we're transmitting to the United States of America and to Canada. And we're broadcasting on 9580 kilohertz in the 31 meter band, 9615 kilohertz also in the 31 meter band, and 6010 kilohertz in the 49 meter band. In our transmission, the news, followed by editorial comment, then our news magazine, Africa South. And we start with the news read by Colin Jackson. In his bulletin, the chief of the South African Defence Force says he believes there's less chance now of another large-scale SWAPO infiltration into Namibia. The Angolan government says there's no question of financial considerations disrupting the schedule for the Cuban troop withdrawal from Angola. South Africa is investigating alleged remarks by the former United States.
Dogs will be slave to the cat,
that he would
Chris
propagate
66.
sanctions against South Africa. And an Irish anti-terrorism group has appealed to the ANC to stop its support for the political wing of the IRA. The chief of the South African Defence Force, General Jan Hildenhuis, says he believes there's less chance now of another large-scale SWAPO infiltration into Namibia. Addressing newsmen in Pretoria, General Hildenhuis said that because of international pressure and the criticism that SWAPO had endured after its incursion.
What else do we have here? We have from 19 so this is shortwave, okay, Radio Finland English service to the Far East from 1977 apparently.
menü leesarja.
Chris 66 says they already slaved to the cats in my house.
Herfin Radio.
The only problem, Rufus, is that the RSPDX that will be sent to all the Democratic Republic of Shortwave will be centered on Paul the Cat's Meow channel, and that's it. You won't be able to tune anywhere else.
On 21.495 megahertz. We also broadcast to Europe on 11.755 megahertz. At 0930 GMT, listeners in the Far East and Australasia should retune.
Bruce, the real one is made by George in Russia. That's the official one.
Frequency is available at 0930.
But there's Russian clones.
Next from Helsinki, this is Eddie Hawkins with Radio Finland in its Sunday best.
Sunday best. Woohoo! Let's see what else we have here. What else do we have here? Rhodesia Broadcasting Corporation closed down 17th of April, 76.
Well, that's it for this week. These stations are now closing down until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, when we'll be broadcasting on medium wave, on shortwave in the 90-meter band, on FM in the following areas: in Salisbury on 99.56 megahertz, Loma Grande, Mazoe and Bandura 92.25, Amtali 96.03, the Eastern Districts and Nyanga 96.63, Wenki 92.33, Victoria Falls 93.11 megahertz, and Fort Victoria 98.96 megahertz. From me, Pete Miller, good night, God bless, and golden dreams.
So that's Rhodesia on shortwave. What else do we have here? Radio. Here, what do I have? United Arab Emirates Radio Shortwave from January 16, 1990, 11945 kilohertz. Desert Storm News.
In Dubai. We welcome you to our program and our English service. We hope that you enjoy them, and we welcome your comments. Good listening.
This is United Arab Emirates Radio in Dubai on 92 MHz FM. We're also transmitting in our external services to North America on frequencies of 11945, 15435, 15400, and 13675 kHz in the 25, 19, and 13 meter bands. Time in Dubai is 7:30 a.m.
I remember listening to UAE radio, United Arab Emirates, in the summer evening when propagation was good with a high solar flux in the 19-meter band in the summertime.
The news with Chris Mendes, first the headlines. American-led Allied forces have launched an attack on military installations in Iraq and occupied Kuwait at the start of Operation Desert Storm to liberate the Gulf Emirates. The armed conflict began with massive bombing raids on strategic installations by wave after wave of Allied aircraft. Correspondents in Baghdad spoke of scores of explosions in and around the city. Israel said bombers had attacked and destroyed missile sites along Iraq's eastern border that were targeted against Israeli locations. The Soviet Union has reported the outbreak of war without further comment. The Western NATO alliance is holding an emergency meeting on the present situation. President Bush, in a nationwide television address, said the use of force was needed to prevent
that's really history.
President Saddam Hussein from improving his military capability. American-led Allied forces today launched an attack.
Well, the Chinese one is available on eBay at many places for the Chinese one. For the Russian model, you have to, I think there's an email or something you have to. I'm finding all of this, Dave, on YouTube. I'm just searching for specific topics. Always end your search with shortwave, and it's going to send you a lot of those recordings. So hey guys, hope you enjoyed the show tonight. I'm going to take it easy for the rest of the evening. Well, it's kind of fun to go through the archives of these broadcasts. I will say goodbye. We'll be back on Saturday. Hope that you enjoy the show, and that you'll be here Saturday with another shortwave show talking about what's happening on the shortwave world. And we'll end with, as we're there, we'll end with Moscow Nights for tonight. Stay safe, comrades. Welcome to the Democratic Republic. I'll do it in Alex Jonestown. Welcome to the Democratic Republic. Welcome to the Democratic Republic, People's Republic of Shortwave. And here, all you have to do is shut up and obey all of my words. Everybody will be happy. No dogs allowed, only cats. Take care, everybody. People's Democratic Republic of Shortwave. The real place in the world where we're free. As long as you shut up. Good night, comrades. The radio on. Tune into those number stations.
This